Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us today to stay curious. We've got two very well-known astronauts celebrate their birthday on the same day. They both have done historic things in space. And we've got another birthday we're going to celebrate from one of our top fans out there for Stay Curious. So we ending the week here. I've got a pretty cool t-shirt on here from my little sister Sherry. Thank you. I think y'all get the theme there. Mars and the moon and little beetles thrown in there. So a good way to get your Friday going. It's warmed up on the Space Coast. No rocket launches this weekend, but we've already had 3 this year. And I want to say hello to my co-producer. We're running our Streamlabs program, Marty Winkle. How are you?
Doing good, Mark. And how are you?
Well, we've had a good week, and we had a couple of our scheduled interviews. Couldn't do it this week, and that's all right. But we've been talking about the shuttles of the month of January. We did a good program on Columbia, STS-107, and all the science performed on that. And we'll talk more about Columbia, Challenger, and of course the Apollo 1 guys next week as we talk about the triumphs and from all these tragedies that are collapsed together at the end of January. So anyway, behind me is Buzz Aldrin, the buzzer, and yes, you all know it. If you don't know it, what kind of space geek are you? That this is the 93rd birthday for the wonderful Mr. Buzz Aldrin, and that picture that Marty, that we're looking at here. 2 famous pictures on this mission taken by Neil Armstrong, the commander who passed away about 10 years ago. The visor shots, what we call Buzz Aldrin forever, immortalized in this photograph. I say it's the most famous photograph of the 20th century. Actually, I think it's the most photograph ever taken by a human being, period. And it's called the visor shot because Neil in the lunar module, LM number 5, is in that visor. Marty is proudly worked on that lunar module as a Grumman electrical engineer. But you're not, and you can't make some of this stuff up, all right? This is Buzz about 5 or 6 years ago, probably like 88 years old. Happy birthday to Edwin Eugene Aldrin Jr., born January 20th, 1930 in Mount Clair, New Jersey, to a mother whose maiden name was Moon. He changed his name legally in 1988 to Buzz of Aldrin, of course, with the Apollo 11 pilot. He landed on the moon in 1969. A lot of people think that's because of Buzz Lightyear, but not really. He acquired the name Buzz as a child because his younger sister mispronounced the word brother as buzzer and later abbreviated it to Buzz. So they actually called him Buzz as a kid, and you can call him Dr. Buzz if you want. And we're going to talk a lot about his triumphs and a few tragedies. Not a polarizing figure, but he felt a little bit as an outcast that people forgot him. And Neil Armstrong was getting all the first man on the moon. And he almost had to stand up and say, hey, I was standing right beside him. Standing, by the way, no seats in the lunar module, all right? And where he's standing right now, I'm proud that my friend Marty Winkle looked right out those very windows there in LM5 to have his electrical work as he was doing there. So Buzz actually confesses in a book that he turned to prescription drugs and alcohol and went into recovery in the 70s. That's in his autobiography, Return to Earth. And then he began studying advancements in space technology. He devised a spacecraft system for Mars missions known as the Aldrin Mars Cycler. And he's received 3 U.S. patents for his schematics of a modular space station, a star booster, reusable rockets, and multi-crew modules. All right. Here is Buzz. You could always pick him out in a crowd of astronauts because he's gone real flashy. And Buzz was on Twitter a lot in the up to 4 or 5 years ago, in his late 70s and into his 80s even, till he's about 88. He was on Twitter all the time. He had a few handlers as he was going around the world. He was definitely one of the world's most sought after VIPs. And of course, 83 years old, 93 years old, he's had to cut back a little bit. So, Marty, do you think Buzz Aldrin is the oldest living American astronaut?
No.
Well, who are? Who is or who are?
Is Jim Lovell?
Yep. And his buddy for life, Frank Borman. Yep. Frank Borman, in fact, is a couple months older than Jim Lovell, the Gemini 7 and Apollo 8 crewmates there. So we said we got a couple birthdays today. We've got another astronaut birthday, but we've got our top fan, Robert Law. Happy birthday to Robert Law. There he is, born in, where were you born, Robert? From Glasgow, UK, United Kingdom. He's in Dundee, Scotland. All right, watching on his parabolic there on his big screen TV. Cheers to you, my friend, Robert Law. Here he is at the Kennedy Visitors Complex. Looking at the Atlantis behind him is the Hubble telescope recreation there. And we hope that you come and visit us soon, Robert. I think you were talking, you might be here in February, and we'll have you sitting right beside me on Stay Curious. Definitely one of the first people that found us, and I'll bet he's not missed but a handful of programs, as this is our 735th episode of Stay Curious today. And it's people like Robert Law is the reason why we're still doing it. So happy birthday to you, young man. No data on you on your Facebook page to brag about anything you do. I don't know the observatory. You're an active amateur astronomer and doing tours. He's self-employed and keeps up, I see on Facebook, with the political scene of the United Kingdom and Dundee, Scotland, your home there. So, Robert, you share your birthday with two giants of our space program. And the second one is, of course, Boiler Up to Jerry, one of a kind, Jerry Ross. Almost blacked out of his name there. Jerry Lynn Ross was born January 20th, 1948. He's 75 years old today, born in Crown Point, Indiana. He's been to space a record-tying 7 times with Franklin Chang Diaz. He performed 10 spacewalks officially, all right? But he did do an 11th spacewalk that I've heard him talk about at a luncheon that I paid to go hear him as an astronaut luncheon. And he did talk about on the Department of Defense mission, STS-26, he actually did an 11th spacewalk that isn't official because it was a Department of Defense mission, all right? And then they barely survived coming back, as this is one of the most heat shields lost, heat tiles of any of the space shuttles, was STS-27 after the return to flight. They lost, and if a couple of these tiles had been to the left 2 or 3 feet, it probably would have disintegrated on re-entry, and that would have been the end of the space shuttle business in 1988. So let's talk a little bit about Jerry Ross, because we're going to talk a lot about the man on the moon. But Jerry Ross, of course, he certainly would have been a moonwalker maybe if he'd come in an earlier time. Graduate of Crown Point High School in Indiana in 1966. He's a proud Purdue-naut, one of, I think there's about 25 or 6 graduates of the great engineering university of Purdue. The flights he flew, 61B in 1985. So he flew from 1985, Marty, to 2002 was his last flight, STS-110 in Atlantis. And he even lobbied for that 8th flight, but never got it. He's an Air Force officer. His papers, photographs, and many personal items are in the Baron Hilton Flight and Space Exploration archives at Purdue University. There he is in space. He was inducted in the Astronaut Hall of Fame in 2014. Jerry wrote a really good book called Spacewalker: My Journey in Space and Faith as NASA's record-setting frequent flyer. That's a Purdue University press with John Norberg. And astronaut Chris Hadfield describes Jerry Ross in his autobiography as, quote, the embodiment of the trustworthy, loyal, courageous, and brave astronaut archetype. All right. He is a lifetime member of the Explorers Club and the Purdue alumni. But there you go. Embodiment of trustworthiness, loyalty, courteousness, bravery, an all-around wonderful astronaut, Jerry Ross. I hope that you're having fun on your 75th birthday. He has boilered up a few Boilermakers, I'll tell you that. I met Jerry and at Fish Lips, Marty, and he used to come into town when the space shuttle before it ended, and then a few years after, and invite everybody to come to Fish Lips, and he bought a whole round for everybody who showed up there. And I met Jerry at one of those events 5 years ago. Very amiable guy, having a lot of fun. You ever seen with him? He's got a big smile for you to take that picture with. So here he is out at the Visitors Complex in 2019, I believe, is when I saw him. Right before COVID. This is the setup where they show the pictures of them. That is the EVA picture above his head there. That's gone. You see a lot of that. It's on the cover of his book. So happy birthday to Jerry Ross. And hope to see him out there, Marty. Have you ever met Jerry?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, he's a good one to have out there at the Space Center. So. Well, let's get to Buzz Aldrin, 93 years old. Boy, how long is he going to hang in there? Buzz, let me just read a few notes here. He was pressured to overachieve by an Air Force father. He flew F-86 Sabre jets in the Korean War, just like a lot of the Mercury astronauts. He went to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And he is definitely, in several astronauts, the smartest astronaut, period. A brainiac, all right? In fact, Bob Pearson, who trained all the astronauts on the simulator at Kennedy Space Center in the Flight Crew Training Building, Bob Pearson, rest in peace, said that without a doubt Buzz was the smartest, but he was also pretty arrogant, and he was one of these astronauts that wouldn't hand you the clipboard. He just tossed it out of the simulator and let you pick it up off the floor. His doctoral thesis was Line of Sight Guidance Techniques for Manned Orbital Rendezvous, helping him be selected in the third group of NASA astronauts. Nicknamed Dr. Rendezvous, he was sometimes abrasive and arrogant, but he admitted, and he said he stuck up with Neil too. He said, "I'm not prone to small talk, all right." And I've seen quotes where he said, "Neil and I weren't your cocktail social people, you know, talking about the politics and the weather and everything." He says, "I'm more writing notes on a bar napkin," which he did a lot of. One problem that Buzz solved in the early space age, and we got to mention this as I show you this picture of Buzz. Well, let's get to a couple other things as well. He helped solve the problem of spacewalks, is what I'm trying to get out. He was on Gemini 12 with Jim Lovell, and that was the last Gemini mission in 1966, and they had to have the spacewalks work right to test the spacesuit, and I'll tell you what brilliant idea he came up with. But very active in returning to Mars. I'll bet a few of you out there bought this t-shirt, "Get your ass to Mars." He would tell people and go around wearing this at autograph sessions. This is Buzz about 10 years ago, maybe a little earlier there. He's been rocking that beard for a long time. And those of you who don't know, Buzz was on Dancing with the Stars, okay? And let me get my notes on that Dancing with the Stars stuff. He has done so much stuff, it's incredible. I wanted to get the woman that he was in Dancing. Oh, here it is. At age 80, he finished 10th in the popular TV show Dancing with the Stars in 2010 with Ashley Delgasso was his dancer there, for those of you that follow that show. I understand he's probably really horrible at age 80. Um,
Very mechanical.
Very mechanical, was he, Marty? Okay. Fan of the show there. In 2020, Aldrin and Collins received Emmy nominations for cinematography in a nonfiction CNN documentary Apollo 11. They didn't win. Aldrin ate snacks on the moon. We'll talk about that. Here he is. What his autograph looks like. All right. And this is him in his suit. They'll talk about him being on the moon here in a minute. Dr. Rendezvous. So he did not do the first rendezvous, ironically. Marty and I at our pre-production meeting were mentioning, Marty mentioned that he wanted to have that be in one of the seats on Gemini 6 with Wally Schirra to see the Gemini 6-7 rendezvous on there. Schirra and Stafford did it. But he was there, of course, making everything work right. And then the Gemini 8 first rendezvous docking with the Nagina was Neil Armstrong and David Scott, so he didn't get on that. So, but he did draw the right straw to go to the first trip to the moon after the General Tom Stafford paved the way with Gene Cernan and Ken Mattingly on Apollo 10. Well, do you all know what you're looking at here? Many of you do, but some of you don't. The first selfie taken in space, where Aldrin turned that, I think it was a 35 millimeter Nikon on him and took a selfie there during a spacewalk where he tested a spacesuit that he did it effortlessly, basically because he trained in a giant water tank. He said, I'm a scuba diver. That simulates weightlessness. Let's simulate where to put handholds and our footholds and so forth, because all the other EVAs, starting with Ed White on Gemini 4, and then we had the Gemini 8 EVA of Gene Cernan. Then Gemini 9 was Mike Collins, and Gemini 10 was Dick Gordon, or maybe 11. They all had trouble of overheating, and there weren't handholds, and finally NASA had to approach this like learning a ballet. This picture is not a selfie. This was taken by Jim Lovell, and you see the Agena docking there in the back there. I like this picture. I think this is one of the cool pictures of our space age. You see the hatch open behind him. But when he was the second man to walk on the moon, all right, and there's the famous shot of him saluting, all right. He's saluting the moon there, but his hand is raised on the other side of his helmet. And just about 5-6 years ago, when digital processing was coming on strong and NASA was digitizing these images, somebody realized that there's more than this picture than meets the eye. All right. Tom Usiak knows where I'm going with this, because I asked Tom about this when I first got to meet him. That if you don't know it, Neil Armstrong is not looking forward like this. I mean, Neil Armstrong. Buzz Aldrin is not looking forward at the flag like this. His head is turned like this towards you, and here's the close-up of it. Where, Marty, why don't you point out the bridge of his nose, and then his eyes are on the other side. Yeah, right there's the bridge of his nose, and his eyes are on the other side, of course. You see his skull cap at the top. And he's, there's the skull cap at the top. And so you think that these astronauts are looking in the direction that they are, but no, as you see from this helmet, there's no swivel on the helmet. The helmet does not, to actually turn their head, they either have to turn their head inside the bubble or literally move their entire body there. So now you know, Buzz there, let me take that away. And there you see him looking at me, looking at you, being stay curious out there. And those of you that didn't know this, you'll forever look at this photograph in a different light. Now, this is one of the big photographs that was the hoax, Marty, that you did not help us go to the moon. because the flag's flying in the breeze there, and everybody knows there's no air on the moon, right, Marty? So I want you to give back all that money that you made, and that your retirement is nixed out, all right, if we didn't go to the moon. Okay? What do you say to that?
Well, fortunately, we did go, so I can keep my money.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's another comeback for idiots out there that say we didn't go to the moon. First you say, well, Russia doesn't complain about it, and we were in a heated race, and they would have loved to have shown communism was much better than uh, our way of life, democracy. So you put that up. He said, and then I would say, well, if we didn't go to the moon, then how do 500,000 people keep that secret? And two, I want our money back, okay, from all these $40 billion that our tax-paying dollars spent to give these people good salaries. So it's utterly ridiculous, and I have learned not to call people out, just to shake my head. After all, 50 years we're looking at since the last time we were on the moon. So people do have a good reason to question it. But as now y'all seeing Buzz looking over my shoulder there at you, don't you? All right. Well, we got a few other buzzer stories to tell you here. He is at the Astronaut Hall of Fame. They have a Lycra image of everybody that's lit up from behind. We'll show you that another time. And one of my favorite pictures, all right, taken by the guy in the middle is Lee Solid. His wife took this picture. This is Buzz Aldrin and the General Tom Stafford arguing about liquid fuel rockets or hypergolics or something like that in front of Lee Solid, who's the retired vice president and general manager of Rockwell, formerly Rocketdyne. All right. And this was at Buzz's 89th birthday. So this is 4 years ago at a place called the Fat Snook in Satellite Beach, where both of them lived. Stafford still lives there. Aldrin moved a couple years ago to California. And you see Buzz's hip with all the things on it. He's got bracelets on his arms for different causes and so forth. And the general's just there and give me a fresh blue shirt and let's go out there. But I asked Lee about this. Look at his expression on his face. And he said they were arguing about propulsion systems and on Aldrin's Mars Cycler, and he wanted to use nuclear power. And Stafford saying, you got to keep the liquid fuel going in there and so forth. So the general is also 93 years old, I think. He's a few months older than Buzz. So great picture, right, Marty?
Yep.
How much is Buzz Aldrin worth? How much are all three of these guys worth? All right. Whew. Buzz in about 3 years ago was estimated to worth $10 million. All right. But they just had a major sale of some of his memorabilia and that fetched over $10 million, I think. So, but he's well healed. He's had his share of family drama with 3 children, 3 wives. Okay, until his mid-80s, he was an active world traveler, the oldest person to go to Antarctica. All right, he did that in 2015, I think. He did that in about around 2018. Right before COVID. He launched at Florida Institute of Technology in Melbourne, just down the road from us. He launched the Buzz Aldrin Space Institute that one of his sons manages. His Share Space Foundation is a nonprofit STEAM education program, and he's made guest appearances on The Simpsons, 30 Rock, The Big Bang Theory, and is a cameo in the movie Transformers: Dark of the Moon, for all you fans out there. He collaborated, can you imagine that? He collaborated with hip-hop artist Snoop Dogg and Caleb Kowal to create the song Rocket Experience to promote space exploration of young people. And the song features Quincy Jones and a couple other rappers to benefit Share Space. I mean, I will give it to him that he has really stayed young in his old age. 2016, tourist trip to Antarctica when he had to be medically evacuated to New Zealand with fluid in his lungs. His books, Return to Earth, is about his autobiography and his struggles with alcoholism and pills. And he's been sober for well over for 50, 60 years. He wrote Magnificent Desolation, a memoir that hit bookshelves in 2009. Well, he's been sober probably about 45 years. He was 40 when he was on the moon. Several children's books that I have bought for my kid, Jessica, that he's autographed. Reaching for the Moon in 2005. Look for the Stars, 2009. Welcome to Mars, Making a Home on the Red Planet. That's a real good one and simple one in 2015. In science fiction novels, The Return, An Encounter with Tiber. I have that autographed by him. And Men from Earth. So he's been very, very prolific. And that's why he's kept his brain alive, and he's done a lot of good things out there. There are some negative stories out there about Buzz, but some of the people have a bad day. How about the day he had in 2002 when Buzz Aldrin was confronted in a Beverly Hills, California hotel lobby by a man who insisted he put his hand on the Bible and swear that the moon landing was a fake. You know what Buzz Aldrin did at age 72 after a short little exchange with this skeptic? He punched the man in the face. All right. And you can catch that on YouTube and see him deck this guy. It's really cool. 12 days in space, all right, and one of the most famous people ever. Of course, the second moonwalker, Buzz Aldrin. Happy 93rd birthday to you, sir. And, of course, you are immortalized in our Space View Park with your hands in the bronze plaques out there of over 30 astronauts. And this is over by the where we have the statue of President Kennedy. I'm looking to see Calvin Fowler there and Sam Bedingfield, both wonderful founders of our museum over there on the right. Marty, you're on a couple of these out there, Shuttle and the Apollo. These people worked for NASA or worked for a contractor, gave us $100, and that's how this all happened. So Doug Forrest, Bill Whiting, Cynthia Rossi, Carlton Bailey, Tom Usiak, and Tom Celentano. We love that you guys are sticking with us. Neil 1030, Daniel DeYoung, Lisa Day, and Charlene Walker, also staying curious today.
Leslie Day.
Leslie Day. Oh, Leslie Day and Charlene Walker. There we go. And I don't see our birthday boy on there. I know he'll be watching on that big parabolic of his up there as he's enjoying a birthday cocktail for sure. Robert Law, happy birthday to you, sir. Happy birthday to Jerry Ross. And Marty, we'll wish you a happy birthday when you have his. All right, so thank you all for a great week of following us on Stay Curious. We're moving some of our collections. We've got a February 18th auction coming up. We've got a January 29th celebration of 17 astronaut heroes, and you can watch that on our Stay Curious YouTube podcast, and we'll be promoting that all next week. So hope you've all enjoyed our content today and all week. Please tell your friends that Stay Curious is there for you all. And we will see you again for episode 736 next week, all to bridge the space between us.